how many of you have ever heard of the Hulett Packard Touchpad? There are a couple hands going up. Okay, so the Hulett Packard Touchpad came out in 2011, and it was supposed to be their answer to Apple's iPad. But it only lasted on the market for about 49 days before they pulled it. So they pulled the touchpad. They lost about $800 million in costs, about $700 million more dollars in assets. So this was a huge failure from a huge company that had great potential. And they actually did everything right in promoting it. They had a bunch of great press, they had great promotion, but it still failed. So why did a product launched by such a great company with so much backing behind it fail? Why would you buy a touchpad when you already have the iPad? So the touchpad didn't disrupt the industry at all. They didn't do anything different to stand out. They didn't differentiate themselves at all, and it failed. And to be successful, you have to differentiate yourself. You have to disrupt the industry. You have to do something different. We all know about the companies that are always mentioned when we talk about innovation. So you've got Apple, you've got Ford, and not to put myself on the same level as Apple or Ford, I haven't made my first million yet, much less my first billion. But in October of 2015, I did launch my very first course. I'm a voice actor, and I decided to teach other people how to get into voiceover. So I launched a course called the Voiceover Success Intensive. And for me, I thought it did really well. So in October 2015, I did about $18,000 in sales for my course. And I thought, this is awesome. This is great. Great launch. And I had disrupted the industry some. I came from an e-learning background and had a lot of technological stuff. I did some computer programming and website building. So I brought this techie side of myself to voiceover, which is a really artistic industry. So you get a lot of people who are in the arts and not a lot of people who are very techie. So it was different. And so the industry was kind of disrupted. But by the end of October 2015, that same month, I was ready to throw in the towel, give everyone a refund who bought my course, and never launch the product again. Because when you disrupt the industry, you do a lot of times can see a lot of great success, but it also puts you in a place where you can get a lot of opposition. So there were people who were saying things like, you can't launch an online course on voiceover, that's not the way we do it. Or people who were attacking my message and saying, well, you're making this sound really easy and being really deceitful to people, which wasn't intentional at all. And then there were people who were saying, well, you're not qualified to do this. You've only been doing voiceover for a year. How dare you come into this industry and try to sell this course when you're not qualified to do it? So the course was successful, but I was ready to throw in the towel because I wasn't prepared to handle this opposition. So I want to talk to you about why it's important to disrupt your industry, and also what you can do when you do get that opposition, because you will get opposition if you're disrupting your industry, and then also some action steps that you can take to start disrupting your industry so that you can be an industry disruptor. So why is it important to be an industry disruptor? Well, first, what does it look like to disrupt your industry? So for me, it was bringing a tech background into voiceover. If you've ever heard anyone say, you're doing this wrong, this isn't how we do it, then you know you're disrupting your industry, and that's where you want to be. As long as you're doing it for the right reasons, don't do it just to be mean or weird. But why is it important to do that? Well, the first reason it's important to disrupt your industry is you'll attract the people who are tired of the same old thing. So there are people out there who are early adapters and people who are looking for something new. How many of you are either in the middle of a launch or you're planning to launch a product or a service in a specific industry? Okay, what is your product or service? What's your industry that you're launching? What is it? Sure, I can hear you, so yes.
High quality book creation.
Okay.
That doesn't just come from an internet marketing perspective.
Okay, high quality book creation that doesn't just come from an internet marketing perspective. So if you look like everyone else and you're doing what everyone else is doing in that space, then you're not going to draw the people who are looking for something new, something innovative. So it's important to differentiate yourself and to disrupt your industry so that the people who are looking for something new have somewhere to go. It's also important to disrupt your industry because it's the only way to establish yourself as a leader in your industry. If you are in the big book publishing industry and your website looks exactly like every other book publisher, your business card's the exact same, your pitch is the exact same, then there's no way for you to rise above and start being seen as a leader in your industry. You'll be a follower, just like everyone else. And another reason why it's really important to disrupt your industry is it's the only way to achieve massive growth. It opens the door to massive success. So again, if you're doing things the same way as everybody else, then you can expect the same results as everybody else, or like the Touchpad, worse results than everybody else. So you want to disrupt your industry so that you can raise the bar and open those doors to massive success. But what if you're like me and you disrupt your industry and you start to see great success, but you can't handle the opposition because there are people out there saying, you're making this look easy, or you aren't qualified to do this, or this isn't the way we do it. How do you handle that opposition? There's a book written by Jay Baer. Have you heard of this? Called Hug Your Haters. Great, great book. And what I loved about his message, there were two things that really stood out to me. One was the way that you handle your customer service. He says, respond to everything. So whether it's a phone call, whether it's an email, a Facebook post, or a Twitter message, you respond to all of it, even if it's negative. You don't delete it. You don't ignore it. You respond to it. And the reasons are, if someone comes up to you've got a promotion on Facebook, and someone posts on it and says, well, this is a bunch of crock. You are making this look easy, and it's not. No one should buy this course. If you leave it there, other people who come and view that post, that's going to be the last thing they see. They're going to have that impression in their minds. And also, it's kind of solidifying what that poster said. So if you respond to them graciously and say, what makes you feel this way, or I understand why you might think that, but let me explain to you why my product is different, not only might you make a lifelong fan and change that person's mind, but people who come afterwards will see the way that you graciously responded, and that's the lasting impression that they'll have of your product or service, rather than this negative response. And another thing that Jay says in his book is that there's no such thing as negative criticism or negative feedback. So when these people were giving me this opposition and saying, you're not qualified to do this, you're making it sound easy and you're being deceptive, or this isn't the way we've always done it, instead of crawling into a ball and throwing my product out and never doing it again, I thought, okay, taking Jay's advice, of course, I wasn't mature enough to do this on my own, but with his guidance in his book, instead of crawling into a ball, I thought, okay, well, how can I turn this into a positive? It looks like maybe my message is coming off as deceitful, and I'm trying to say that voiceover is easy, and I don't want that. So I'm going to craft my message next time so that it clearly says, voiceover isn't easy. So I had a headline on one of my promotions next time that said, voiceover isn't easy, and it immediately just quelled that. So no one could look at my stuff anymore and say, well, she's being deceitful about this. When people said, you're not qualified to do this, I went and partnered with one of the biggest names in voiceover, a really well-known name, and put her name on it too, and she's my partner now. And so now you can't say, well, you're not qualified to do this. So there are things that you can take that negative feedback, take that negative criticism, and turn it into a positive to make your next launch even stronger. So what are some action steps that you can take today to start disrupting your industry? So the first thing that you can do is start to research other leaders in your industry. And not to copy them, not to copy what they're doing, but to analyze what they're doing and what works and what doesn't. So how they're engaging with their community, different products and services that they're using that are working well or that aren't working well. If you see some things that aren't quite jiving, where they're kind of missing the mark, or some places where it's really working, just take note of those things. Another thing that you can do to start disrupting your industry, another action step that you can take, is to start looking at different but related industries, tangential industries. So if you're in the book publishing space, but you don't want to be like every other book publisher out there, maybe look into the entertainment industry and see what they're doing that's working for them. Something that is kind of unique to that industry, a way that they communicate their message or that they talk to their market, and then bring that over into the book publishing industry, because that's something that's going to be way different from what other book publishers are doing. It's going to differentiate you and help you to stand out and really disrupt your market there. And another thing that you can do to really disrupt your industry is to start thinking of and researching ideas and services that are groundbreaking, that are big right now. So when Simon Sinek came out with his Start With Why TED Talk and his book, it was huge, and it just took off. And a lot of businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs took that message, the Start With Why message, and incorporated it into their launches. And it worked really well for a lot of them, not just because it was a great idea, but because it was popular. It was trending. Everyone was talking about Start With Why. So think about what's trending right now, what's going on that's a great service or a great idea that's just out there that you can bring in and rein in and harness, kind of inject into your launch and take advantage of the momentum of a new product or idea or service that's going on right now. So I want you to move forward boldly in your launch as you try to disrupt your industry. And when the opposition comes, because it will when you disrupt your industry, don't be afraid of it, don't run from it, don't crawl into a ball like I did, but embrace it and use it to make your next launch better. Thank you very much.